Welcome back to my channel, the Basketball Feed, the basketball channel for you. Today we are going to be doing something a bit special. Well, not really special, it's special to me. We're going to be doing a playoff bracket. But it's not your typical playoff bracket, not the normal prediction stuff. It'll be a special playoff bracket. This playoff bracket will be teams that I want to see in the playoffs get their chance. Teams that I want to see match up. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll see good teams versus bad teams. It's going to be a mix, a variety of teams. It's going to be a bit of creativity added into it. Now, I'm a bit ill, so excuse me if my voice sounds a bit off. I contract basically every disease on this planet Earth. My head is kind of hot. My voice is a bit down, it's also hurting, but you know what, the grind continues. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So, for the West, we're going to start with the West. I'm looking at this current log for this year. It's actually pretty perfect. The only team that maybe I'll look into changing is the Suns for the Mavericks or the Jazz. But let's get into it. So, by the way, the seeding does not matter because at the end of the day, I'm choosing teams that I want to see play. So, Thunder and Spurs might very much be a first round matchup. I might put the Thunder as the first seed and the Spurs as the 8th seed. Doesn't necessarily mean I see the Spurs as an 8th seed. They're obviously better than that. So, let's go into this. The first team, I'm just going to put OKC. Oops. Excuse me. I'm just going to put OKC there. OKC. And then the second team, I'm looking, what would a good matchup be for the OKC? Because remember, it's just teams. I would say but the Spurs go well with the Nuggets, actually. I'll say the Rockets, OKC Rockets, even though, they were boasting about the size that, the Rockets had, but all of a sudden, the Rockets are not doing as well as they wanted to. They're still the 4th seed, that's pretty good. But, that true point guard, Fred VanVleet, that they need in the team integrated. But anyway, I reckon, not the Timberwolves. I feel like the Timberwolves is better suited with different teams. So I'm going to say the Rockets. Yeah, I'm going to say the Rockets. Rockets. Boom. Now, the Rockets are the 8th seed. I've said this disclaimer, that does not matter here. It's purely about the bracket. Now, the next bracket I want to put is the obvious bracket, the most obvious one of the day. Lakers versus Warriors. We need a series of this. Now, I know Jimmy Butler's injury. Now, everyone needs to be healthy for this series to be generational. People wanted the series last year, but the Warriors fell short. They were the 7th seed. If the Warriors won one more game, it would have been a Lakers-Warriors series, which would honestly be insane. But anyway, that is matchup to look out for. Our next is going to be the Spurs versus the Nuggets. Now, the Spurs versus the Nuggets is a big man intro to the playoffs. Wemby, Jokic going at it. Imagine them going to Game 7. It'll be vibes. It'll be a great matchup for the league. I feel like it might happen this year, but for that, it'll probably have to be a Western Conference final matchup. And the Thunder are a team, so, that's really hard to meet. But maybe they could meet in the second round, possibly, but they're neck and neck in the standings, so it's going to be tough to judge. Now, the next bracket I want to see is the Wolves, obviously. Very exciting team. Ant-Man is killing, averaging 29. And now this might be niche as hell. but I actually want to see the Wolves versus the Utah Jazz. Now, I know, the Jazz aren't the best team, but that's not the point of the bracket. That's really like, the Jazz are this type of team. Imagine seeing that specific Jazz team in the playoffs. That would be such a weird but like intriguing experience. Obviously the Jazz were a good franchise about like 4 years ago, with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But this new era Jazz led by Lauri Markkanen, Keontae George really seems interesting to me. It's like there's a certain belonging, but not really, because they're quite bad. But yeah, teams I would like never want to see here is the Pelicans. I don't care about the Pelicans to an extent, but the Pelicans, would be a good playoff team. The Kings, I don't like the Kings, let's be real. The Grizzlies, I'll put the Grizzlies, but the West is kind of stacked with teams that you want to see in a playoff series. The Suns, I might have shaked the Suns here, but I feel like the Jazz got it, I won't lie. It's between Jazz, Suns, the bracket for the West is kind of like, that's a dream set. Maybe you could argue for the Mavericks, the Clippers. The Clippers went to Game 7 with the Nuggets, so, there's a fun factor in there. But anyway, let's move on to the Western Conference. Sorry, not the West, the Eastern Conference, my mind-boggling sickness here. So this one is going to be interesting because there's going to be a lot of teams that you would not expect here. So the first matchup I would like to see in the first round is Boston Celtics versus, hear me out here, the Boston Celtics versus the Charlotte Hornets. Now look, that Hornets team looks promising. A year ago, it was like all the guys that were thinking of trading LaMelo Ball, trying to move Miles Bridges maybe. Brandon Miller was supposed to be this pillar, but he's been riddled with injuries. But Con Canupul has genuinely, dare I say, saved this franchise. And the Celtics Hornets is very interesting because you have scorers, you have people that can shoot the ball, Derek White sometimes, and then you have Con Canupul, obviously generational shooter. Your scorers, Jaylen Brown, LaMelo Ball, and then you have this matchup of almost role players like that are hungry, that want to win, It'll be a really good matchup for me. Next up on our agenda, I feel like we need to see another Sixers Hawks matchup. Now, this actually happened, I'm pretty sure, was it 2021? But this matchup right now, without Trae Young, this new, not exactly new, but like kind of fresh breath of fresh air for the Sixers with Maxey averaging about 29, and Embiid coming back in. You have VJ Edgecombe solidifying himself as a star for the near future. And the Hawks with Jalen Johnson. Guys, Jalen Johnson is a dog. I can't be, that's not even glaze, that's just the truth. This matchup would be insane. If it's like anything like 2021, then expect crazy. Now, hear me out. I feel like the East teams are way harder to decide who should play next, because I feel like, you want to see all of these matchups. I'm thinking Pistons versus Nets. Now, they're polar opposites of each other. There used to be a time period when the Pistons were just as bad as the Nets, if not worse. One of the worst seasons from a team ever. I watched that. I've seen that whole season. Cade Cunningham was suffering. But anyway, I feel like this would be a good matchup. And now this is where problems come in, because there's 2 spots left. And I genuinely might be changing stuff, What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the Hornets. I feel like I'm going to remove the Hornets. And then I'm going to put the Bucks. Celtics Bucks had numerous series that were amazing. Sorry to the Hornets, but the disparity of teams is just too good to pass on. The paces are there as well. Final matchup I want to see is Knicks Raptors. We need a series like this where two teams can grind it out. You have offense of the Knicks, the defense of the Raptors getting it done. You have the emergence of Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram. Obviously, Jalen Brunson is doing his thing. Cat hasn't been as good as normal, Knicks fans wanted him to be, but he's still performing at, I would say, all-star level. Now, this is our bracket. Now we're going to predict, the next round matchups. But teams that I've snubbed, I'm going to name the teams that I've snubbed. The Cleveland Cavaliers are a team that I have snubbed. And now, this is, your opinion, but the Cleveland Cavaliers have a legitimate chance to be here. Remember, this is creative. This is like, it's not really off the dome. It's just like something that I dream or see, like, giving the smaller teams a chance to emerge. So, the Heat as well. The Heat are a very good team. The Magic, the Bulls, the Hornets, obviously, the Pacers, even the Wizards. Every single team in here, I would like to see play in a playoff series. But, there's 15 teams or only 8 spots. That's why I feel like it's harder to predict that side because, yes, the Western Conference is a dogfight, but it's a dogfight of the best teams. And, you watch the best teams. And the best teams are entertaining. So, we'll move on to that. Now, I'm going to predict next round. This is going to be interesting. But for flip the Wolves for me. The Wolves, Spurs, Nuggets. I feel like in the playoff series, the Nuggets would be way better, but the Spurs have the spark, the power, talent. Spurs. Lakers, Warriors. Now I'm going to be completely honest here. This could go to 7, but I'm going to pick the Warriors to win the series. This is hypothetical, by the way. It doesn't necessarily mean I think they would win a series, Obviously, they've lost the series to the Lakers in recent memory. I think it was back in 2023, but anyway. OKC Rockets, that's a good matchup, but I think, it's just OKC. Next, Celtics Bucks. Fortunately, I have to go with the Celtics for that one. Sixers Hawks. You know what? The Hawks impressing me. Obviously they could be doing a little better. They're in a playing spot right now. The Sixers are better, but I would like to see the Hawks, Celtics Hawks, rendition of the first round in 2023, I believe. Pistons Nets. Just give me the Pistons. Yeah. The come up of the Pistons is actually so inspirational. Such a team with this firepower. And mind you, the difference between the Pistons and the Thunder is that the Pistons have played less games and only have one more loss. Just let that sink in. That's how good this team has been. The next one, might be controversial, but I pick the Raptors. I pick the Raptors here. The next, OKC Warriors. I feel like a very good matchup, but, Warriors are old. No, the Warriors are my favorite team, but I'm not going to be biased here. Obviously, actually, no. It's my dream scenario. My dream scenario would be the Warriors, so I'm going to pick the Warriors. I don't care. You guys, tell me who you've picked. Okay, so Warriors. Spurs, Wolves, very good matchup. I feel like the Wolves can definitely, up the scoring volume on the Spurs, but the Spurs have Wemby. A bald Wemby, to be fair, and I would like to see the Spurs go through. Now, Celtics, Hawks. Celtics, as much as, most people didn't like the Celtics, especially when they were winning. The Celtics are a pretty funnish team to watch. Pistons, Raptors. Give me the Pistons. Then, now, we have our Western Conference Final and Eastern Conference Final matchup. Now, this is where I say, would I rather see the Warriors or the Spurs in the finals? Obviously, I would rather see not the Spurs, the Warriors. But as a dream matchup in my head, it will kind of be sick to think of this emerging power that is the Spurs with Wemby, Fox, Castle, Harper. And so I will be putting the Spurs to go into the final. Now, Celtics Pistons. Give me the Pistons. Spurs Pistons. I can't lie. The Spurs are appealing to me. And that is my playoff bracket, guys. Thank you so much for watching. The Spurs, they might win it this year. I'm not sure. But anyway, that is my playoff bracket. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.